we brought up the word a little earlier and I didn't respond to it. It's called the placebo effect. I said, what's that? I said, a person has a chronic illness. The doctor says we have the greatest, newest medicine. This pill, I always love it because there was one that said, and it's purple. You know, it's like, oh, wow, purple pill. That's got to be really good. And you take this pill, you get better. And then you find out it was a sugar pill. I said, well, then what made you better? Well, obviously, it wasn't the sugar that made you better. It was your belief, the picture in your mind. I'm going to be healed by this pill. The healing chemistry resulted from that picture and healed the body, okay? And that's called the placebo effect. It's the belief that healed, not the drug, okay?
So that understanding that we're a community of, we're like a human petri dish with trillions of cells, and clearly our beliefs are affecting, based off the placebo effect that you just mentioned, how these cells are programmed, what they're telling them, what they're being programmed for and going to replicate into. And I've heard you share how the vast majority of beliefs that we have are, unfortunately, this negative programming that we continue to replicate. So then what is the nocebo?
Well, nocebo is a consequence of a negative belief. I go, so, well, a negative belief, a positive belief enhances your vitality. A negative belief, threatening, puts us back in a stress situation, shuts down our vitality, okay? And people never talk about the negative belief. We only want to talk about the positive belief. I go, well, negative belief is equally powerful in controlling your biology, but in the opposite direction. Placebo can heal you from any disease. Nocebo, negative thinking, can cause any disease, even death. If you believe you're going to die, and you really believe it, and let's say a doctor gives you a prognosis, you got 3 months left to live, and you buy that, in about 3 months you will die, whether you had a disease or not. That's what it turns out. Why? You've been programming yourself to release the chemistry. You will die, and it's based on your belief, which then is epigenetics.
Man, so the issue is both we have, of course, our own negative self-programming that's still within us, and then we also have the societal programming that continues to perpetuate certain narratives and fear, which continues to help people at B, individuals, corporations continue to run their business. We have a $1 trillion, sick care system, not healthcare system, and the 700 billion pharmaceutical industry is playing big time on a lot of what we're speaking to here. And so how do you continue to sharing words of empowerment to kind of reclaim our sovereignty and our ability to really influence and take health into our own control, into our own hands, instead of outsourcing the solutions, which really keep us as customers to a larger agenda?
Well, that is one of the biggest problems the whole world is, and this is a fact. So I'm not saying it's out of school here. That in the United States, medicine is the third leading cause of death. The first being cardiovascular disease, second cancer, and the third is hidden by a Latin name called iatrogenic illness. Everybody goes, oh yeah, that's me. What I say, iatrogenic illness is actually self-inflicted illness, okay, through medical treatment. So medicine, creating the treatment, is responsible for the third leading cause of death, okay? Now, that was published in 2010 in the Journal of the American Medical Association. So I want people to know this research didn't come from some side place, offbeat place. It came right from the Journal of the American Medical Association. They recognized they're the third leading cause of death. 6 years later, 2016, the British Medical Journal redid the study and came out with the same conclusion. Medicine in the United States is the third leading cause of death. 300,000 people a year die from prescription drugs. 100,000 from the illegal drugs, 300,000 from prescription drugs. We have a war on illegal drugs and nobody talks about the prescription drugs. I said, they write it off. Funny, it's not funny, but they write it off. Oh, that's the cost of doing medicine. I go, that's a damn expensive cost to kill 300,000 people a year. So I go, so what's the issue here? And the issue is this is based on belief systems again. So where'd you get the belief system? The first 7 years. I say, for the average family, when somebody's sick, they go to a doctor. A child that's under 7 is being programmed. And what do they watch? Well, when mommy's sick, she goes to the doctor. And when dad's sick, he goes to the doctor. When I'm sick, I go to the doctor. What was the program that got downloaded? When it comes to health, you're not the official source. That the doctor is the official source. You want to find out about, how health is affecting you? It's not up to you. It's up to what the doctor says. So we implicitly bought into the fact that we give doctors the truth. They are the source of truth. If they say you're going to die in 3 months, you don't question that. You say, oh, okay, I'll get ready and go home, take care of my affairs, and I'll die in 3 months. And people do. And then a number of them, they've done autopsies to find out they didn't die from the original prognosis of what the doctor said. They died because it was 3 months. So basically it says, you give up your power of truth to someone else, the doctor and the medical profession. And that includes, unfortunately, on top, the pharmaceutical industry. We buy it. And it used to be, well, the doctors used to, tell you what drugs you need. And now with television, the advertisements tell you what drugs you need. So remember Bill Maher, he was doing a show and he talked about that. And he said, well, your doctor is a drug dealer. You went in there and say, I want this drug, and he sells you that drug, as a drug dealer. And the issue about it is the drugs are the problem, but they're the problem because of the belief system that we gave them. And when the doctor says you have a negative anything, then it becomes your truth. And your mind, being the creator, will take that truth and manifest whatever they just said. That's why I said, cancer isn't in a family lineage 90% of the time. It just showed up. I said, how to do that? It was a consciousness that took them out, disharmony in the system. And the doctors, of course, don't give us personal power. Your doctor training is your body's not intelligent, and therefore outside sources must be able to read your body and adjust what's going on because your body's not intelligent, which is like the biggest falsehood that ever existed. There's nothing more intelligent than the human body, but it's programmed or misprogrammed, and that determines the consequence of it. So the idea is we give up our health control by saying, I don't know anything about it, but the doctor knows, and then the doctor's words then come into your mind as truth, whether it's positive or negative, and then you will manifest that truth because of the consciousness of it.
Western allopathy is incredible for acute injury, but I think, like you're speaking to, has gotten it so wrong when it comes to chronic illness. And, we've really subdued ourselves to this powerlessness and forgotten of the power of our own inner pharmacy that we have internally. And so I would love for you to speak to that, and also how the culture, there's a chemistry of culture that we live in, and different places in the planet will on average have more of a certain type of disease because of the culture and the certain belief systems that are correlated to that, which I find very interesting because that just plays in exactly here how the beliefs that we have in a certain culture correlates to a certain chemistry we have in our biology, therefore creating certain diseases.
Well, we got to remember now that we go through that programming period, and the programs are the things that we decide this is true or not true based on what the programs say. It's very interesting because you're absolutely right that different regions on the planet have different kinds of cancers, for example. But what was real interesting is over the years, they started to recognize, let's say, that in China, a particular cancer is predominant type of cancer. But when Chinese people emigrate to the U.S. and live in the U.S., they end up getting the cancer that's predominant in the U.S. So it's a regional experience based on the culture, each culture and the experience of
Which
it.
the culture is an amalgamation of both the diet, the thoughts, the beliefs, the lifestyle.
The programming that you got to fit into the system and what you should be afraid of, what you should be afraid of. And that becomes the issue. I got a moment, and I'd like to say this, is that we have given up our power to the medical people, but more so to the pharmaceutical people. When they started out, maybe the pharmaceutical people were really nice. But at some point, like big organizations of any kind, at some point, their work really goes to support them, not who they're serving, okay? It happens in education. I've been a professor. Yeah. But guess what? The administration gets more power than the professors have. And they get all the money. The professors don't get all the money because they're building these giant universities, and it's like taxing everybody, the students, and more so the faculty, because we're paying for overhead and all that stuff. Medicine, same thing. Now it's corporate run. Hospitals like Kaiser Permanente and things like that, they're corporations. What's the mission of a corporation? By law, the mission of a corporation is to return a profit to the shareholders. I go, okay, wait, stop right there. I go, what do you mean? Well, healthcare charges you to heal you and then charges you to cover the overhead and all the other expenses. And that overhead is what goes back to the shareholders and all that stuff. So you're paying more money for your health than was necessary because you're feeding these people. The idea is medicine should be a nonprofit situation, but it's not a nonprofit situation. It's based on how much money to keep the damn thing going. Well, the pharmaceutical companies have ripped the people off for years doing this, raising the prices on things like, insulin for diabetics. All of a sudden, the prices started going up to the extent that now diabetics have a hard time even paying for the medicine they need just to stay, steady. The drug prices are based on corporate interests. It has nothing to do with the people. The prices are so amazing that it's like, wow. And they're evil, in my opinion, because it's like they look at it and say, well, it's profit motive. We're allowed to do that. I go, my brother had Hep C. We've got a pill to take care of Hep C. I go, oh, yeah, how much? It's $1,000 a pill. Oh, that's expensive. How many pills do I need? 100 pills. I say, then a diagnosis is costing you $100,000 for this pill that they've actually created with government funding to do it and then charge all this money. There's an evil one, the one that gets me all the time is some babies are born with a myoneural dysfunction that causes them to die within the first couple of years, 2 or 3 years, boom, they're out of here. And a company came up with some genetic engineering, to help this child survive. And I go, so what? I go, well, here's a woman. Let's put it the scenario. She just had this baby, and that's nothing. I mean, between a mother and a baby, that's the super bonding of life, And then she gets a diagnosis, her baby's going to die in 3 years. I go, what do you think? What goes through that mother? And then the pharmaceutical guy should wear a mask, comes up and says, we could save your child. Oh, thank God. It's like $1,500,000 for the treatment. You might as well hold a gun to the mother and say, give us $1.5 million or we're going to kill your kid. And I go, this is standard business in the pharmaceutical world. They're not our friends. They're profiteering people. They're corporations. And corporations mean to make overhead money on top of the service they give you. In healthcare, I find that abominable. I can't believe that a person is sick and now you're going to try to take a profit from being sick. That's why in the U.S., how many people can't afford healthcare? How many people in the U.S. can't even visit an emergency room? Minimum $500. You walked in the door. They don't have $500. I go, we're in a very bad place here, because when the profiteering took over, then the idea of humanity left the room at that point. And so people in the U.S. can't afford health care, can't afford the payments, can't afford the drugs. And it's like, but that's business. I go, this is not business, it's life, man.
Yeah, it's tough too, because there's the genuine altruistic impulse that nurses and doctors have and go in, and then the system that they're in is just not equipped to help them truly, oftentimes help.